On the day of my wedding, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't faint. I simply walked down the aisle and watched another woman, wearing the dress I paid for, stand where I was meant to be. No announcement. No explanation. Just betrayal, draped in lace and pearls. Everyone else looked away. But I didn't. Because while they whispered what now, I was already planning what's next. And I wasn't just going to walk away, I was going to burn everything they built on my name. The day was supposed to be perfect. June sun. Private garden estate. 200 carefully curated guests dressed in florals and pastel linen. The kind of wedding Pinterest dreams are made of. I had spent months choosing every detail. The flower arrangements. The catering. The signature cocktails. The strings version of our favorite love song. I designed the dress myself. A minimalist, off-shoulder ivory gown with a silk train, tailored to my body like a second skin. Everything was supposed to begin at 4 p.m. sharp. And at 3:56 p.m., I stood alone in the dressing suite, veil in hand, wondering why no one had come to get me. The silence was wrong. I opened the door into the hallway. No bridesmaids, no photographers, no frantic coordinators. Just echoes. I picked up my skirt and walked barefoot down the corridor toward the entrance to the garden. My heels clicked softly against marble as I followed the sound of violin. And when I reached the edge of the courtyard, the world stopped. Because there, at the altar standing in front of my groom, was someone else. Dressed in white. Wearing my veil. Standing in my place. It was my cousin Melanie. Same height. Same build. Same brown curls tucked into a low chignon. The music swelled. Guests turned to the aisle. Smiling. Applauding. No one looked confused. No one panicked. Only me. I stepped forward in disbelief, heart pounding, hands shaking. My mother caught my eye from the front row. She looked away. The officiant spoke. "We are gathered here today." I choked on breath. I looked at Carter, my fiancé. My everything. He didn't flinch. Didn't look back. Didn't search for me. He reached for Melanie's hands and said, "I do." I stood there, frozen, a silent bride in a dress no longer mine. No one acknowledged me. Not one person rose to stop what was happening. Not my friends. Not my family. Not even my own father. I turned and walked away. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just away. I didn't cry. Not when I walked back into the suite. Not when I peeled off the gown and hung it over the chair. Not when I pulled my phone from the clutch and saw the message from my mother. "It's for the best. You'll understand later. Let it go." I didn't scream. I simply packed my bag and left through the side gate. Not a single soul tried to stop me. I checked into a downtown hotel with nothing but a weekender bag and enough cash to pay for 3 nights. And for 3 days I didn't turn on the news. Didn't open social media. Didn't answer a single call. I showered. Ate in silence. Walked the city with my head down, headphones in, phone off. And on the 4th day, I started over. My name is Savannah Hartley. I was once engaged to the city's most eligible tech CEO, Carter Lang. Together we were branded as the next power couple. He built apps. I managed public relations. We grew together from college dorms to penthouse meetings, investors' galas, and rooftop parties. But I was never the story. He was. And I was the accessory. The good girl. The plus one. The eventual Mrs. Lang. Until I wasn't. Until he stole my life, swapped me out like I was replaceable, and married my cousin without a single word of explanation. That was the day I died. But the woman who rose after? She's something else entirely. I didn't return to my apartment. Didn't try to get answers. Didn't show up at my parents' house demanding reasons. They had made their choice. And now I was making mine. I liquidated what I could. Closed my personal accounts. Created a new identity. First legally, then emotionally. Savannah Hartley no longer existed in any bank record, registry, or public profile. I became S. Monroe, founder of an anonymous consulting firm called Monroe Strategies. It started with one contract, helping a boutique startup handle their brand crisis after a messy lawsuit. I fixed their PR mess in a week. Doubled their exposure. Tripled their investors. Word spread. Suddenly I was in demand. And no one knew the woman behind the curtain was a jilted bride left at the altar by her own blood. Then came the call. Blocked number. Friday afternoon. "Miss Monroe?" a smooth voice asked. Yes. I'm calling on behalf of Thorn Tech. My client would like to schedule a meeting. I paused. The name rang like a warning bell. Carter's biggest competitor. Julian Thorn, elusive, private, rumored to be ruthless. The man Carter once called a parasite in $1,000 suit. What does Mr. Thorn want with me? I asked. Your discretion. And your fire. I smiled. I'll be there. The office tower was sleek steel and tinted glass. The lobby so quiet you could hear the echo of your own heartbeat. I was escorted to the top floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a conquest. And there he was. Julian Thorn. Tailored. Cold eyes that seemed to see through fabric and lies. He didn't rise. Just looked at me with an expression that didn't match the photos online. Less devil, more weapon. I expected older, he said. I expected taller, I replied. He smirked. I like you already. The meeting lasted 28 minutes. He handed me a file. Inside. Sensitive documents, financial statements, press drafts, competitor leaks. All from Lang Corporation. My pulse quickened. What exactly do you want from me? I asked. He leaned back. I want you to destroy him. Quietly. Elegantly. Irrefutably. I closed the file. You're assuming I want the same. I'm assuming, he said slowly, that you were left at the altar by a man who married your cousin in your place. I'm assuming you walked away without a word. And I'm assuming you're far too smart to waste pain that sharp. Silence. Then I whispered, I want him to lose everything he thought I needed him for. Julian smiled. Then we're in business. Julian Thorn didn't waste time. After our first meeting, he had his team draw up a consultancy contract by morning. No fluff, no slow onboarding. He gave me access to Lang Corporation's vulnerabilities, their internal product launch timeline, their marketing failures, even private shareholder frustrations. It wasn't legal. But it was strategic. And it was all I needed to bury them quietly. I don't want drama, Julian had said. I want collapse. Then let me do it my way, I told him. Do it right, he corrected. First, I tracked Carter's public weakness, his ego. He had always wanted to be seen as self-made despite the truth. Lang Corporation had been a trust-funded startup built on inheritance and image. The narrative was thin, stretched by PR and filtered success stories. With Julian's data and my access, I crafted a series of anonymous leaks. Early-stage documents showing Carter fudging beta results, using fake user data to inflate metrics, and buying influencer testimonials through offshore accounts. Each file was timed. Each post carefully coordinated to land during LangCorp's investor meetings, board reviews, and keynote presentations. I didn't want to blow it all up at once. I wanted to make Carter sweat. And he did. Meanwhile, I launched my own company, Monroe Strategies, as a front-facing powerhouse. No one knew it was me. Not yet. Behind the scenes, I took on failing female-led startups, elevated their branding, secured seed rounds, and quietly collected loyalty. Every woman I helped added bricks to the empire I was building. And every success made me harder to erase. I didn't do it alone. Julian and I met weekly, first out of necessity, then habit, then curiosity. He was brilliant, detached, and calculated. And yet, he never once asked me how I felt about Carter. Never pitted me. Never treated me like a woman healing. Only like a woman rising. 6 months after the wedding, Carter was in damage control. LangCorp's shares had dropped 14%. Melanie's cheating scandal with a minor league athlete was splattered across every tabloid. Carter had filed a public separation to protect his personal reputation. I laughed when I saw the headline, Billionaire Golden Boy's marriage crumbles amid infidelity rumors. You see, they deserved each other. He betrayed me. She replaced me. And now they were both publicly failing in the roles they stole. That same day, Julian walked into our meeting with a file marked priority. What's this? I asked. A company Carter tried to buy 2 years ago. Small fintech firm. Denied his offer because they didn't trust his model. They're still independent, and they're looking to sell. So, I flipped through the documents. Why do I care? Because they have patents his next product depends on, he said. If we get there first, he can't launch. My eyes lifted slowly. And I get to be the one who says no? Julian's lips curved. Better. You get to own the thing he needs to breathe. We acquired the company under a shell corporation I created in college. A name Carter would never trace back to me. The deal went public 3 weeks later. Lang Corp's official statement read, "We were exploring potential partnerships, but ultimately, the acquisition was out of alignment with our current goals." Translated, we got outplayed and now our flagship product is delayed indefinitely. The market responded accordingly. Lang Corp's stock tumbled further. Investors started pulling out. Me. I watched it all unfold from my penthouse window. A space Julian had helped me secure, overlooking the exact skyline Carter once promised we'd dominate together. Funny how promises rot in the hands of liars. But something shifted that night. Julian stayed after a meeting to celebrate the deal with a bottle of Bordeaux and 2 crystal glasses. "You ever think about going public?" he asked. "With my identity? With everything. What he did. Who you are now." I looked at the glass. "You think I need the attention?" "No," he said quietly. "I think the world needs to see what survival actually looks like." I stared at him, unsure whether I wanted to kiss him or push him away. I did neither. Instead I said, "When the time comes, I won't just reveal myself. I'll make sure he's in the room when I do." The next morning I signed 2 documents. 1. The final transfer of full ownership of Monroe Strategies into my legal name, Savannah Hartley. 2. The application to trademark my new personal brand, Savannah Monroe, a fusion of who I was and who I'd become. My name was no longer hidden. It was a weapon. Then I made a phone call. "Hello," my mother answered, cautious. "It's me," I said. "I want you to hear something." "Savannah. You let them do that to me. You looked away. So I want you to look again, this time when I take everything back." Silence. Then, "You sound different." "I am." Carter Lang's fairy tale marriage had begun to crack weeks after it started. At first they tried to salvage the image. He made strategic appearances at tech conferences. Melanie grinned beside him in carefully curated outfits, clutching his arm like a trophy. The press called her the unexpected bride. The city called it scandalous romance. And I called it a disaster waiting to happen. Because what they didn't know was that I had eyes on her. I wasn't watching Carter. I was watching Melanie. Because she was the weak link. And all I needed was one unravel to pull the whole thing apart. The first break came from a message. A tip, sent anonymously to Monroe Strategies' secure inbox. Subject line: "You should look into her past. It's dirtier than her white dress." Attached were blurred screenshots, private DMs between Melanie and a man named Trevor Pierce. A name I hadn't heard in years, but one that made my stomach churn. Trevor had been the bad boy of our high school. He dealt in parties, pills, and trouble. He was also Melanie's first love. The kind you lie about, the kind you don't bring home. According to the messages, he wasn't just still in her life. He was living in one of the downtown apartments owned by Carter. And Carter? He had no idea. I sent my investigator, Alba, discreet and razor-sharp, to dig deeper. Within days I had what I needed: hotel receipts, security cam footage, and timestamp texts confirming Melanie's late-night visits to Trevor's apartment. One photo stood out: Melanie half-covered in a trench coat, leaving the apartment lobby at 3:42 a.m., a full hour before Carter gave a keynote at the investors' breakfast downtown. I didn't release it yet. Not directly. I bided my time. Because information is most valuable when it detonates publicly. When it's witnessed. I had already started weaving a quiet network of powerful women. Investors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs who were tired of being overshadowed by men like Carter Lang. Together we called ourselves the Constellation Circle. We weren't loud. We were strategic. One of our members, Shay, owned a growing gossip blog known for dropping truth bombs on the elite. I handed her everything anonymously. No need for my name to be attached. He took it like a gift from the gods. And within 48 hours it exploded. Headline: Lang Corp bride exposed. Melanie Lang in secret affair with ex-con lover. Underneath, photo evidence. Dates. Timeline overlaps. Carter had been presenting to shareholders the morning after she left her lover's apartment. The internet turned feral. Social media lit up with commentary, memes, and outrage. Investors panicked. Carter's PR team scrambled. Worse still, The scandal had dropped the same week Langcorp was preparing to pitch a new IPO project. The optics? Fatal. I watched the press conference from my penthouse. Carter stood stiffly in front of the Langcorp banner, jaw clenched, voice tight. We are aware of the rumors circulating online. These are personal matters and we ask the public to respect our privacy. Translation. We've been exposed and I can't control the narrative anymore. He didn't deny it. He didn't defend her. Because he couldn't. And I knew him well enough to know what he was thinking. This isn't sabotage. This is punishment. Behind the scenes I kept moving. While Carter's team tried to patch the hemorrhage, I slipped into their investor pool through intermediaries. Small buys. Quiet trades. Hidden names. By the time Carter noticed the ownership shift, I had a controlling interest in one of his critical subsidiaries. LangSecure, a cybersecurity firm integral to Langcorp's infrastructure. I didn't gloat. I didn't issue a statement. I simply let the buyout confirm itself through the stock exchange. Then I requested a seat at the next board meeting. Julian texted me that morning. Thorne, heard you pulled off the acquisition. Impressive. He left me standing at the altar. Thorne. And now he's standing on a trapdoor. Thorne. Do I bring popcorn? Me. Bring champagne. The board meeting was small. 12 members, all male except for 2 women who had already begun to quietly align with me after the leak. Carter walked in late. His eyes landed on me immediately. And for the first time since the wedding he looked shaken. Savannah, he said, his voice low. You've been busy. I smiled. I had some free time. He took his seat. You leaked the affair. I didn't leak anything, I said coolly. The truth leaked itself. Your wife's poor decisions simply floated to the surface. Why are you here? He demanded. I looked around the table, lifted a small leather folder and passed it down. Inside, ownership documentation, share percentages, voting rights. I'm your newest board member, I said. And I'd like to start by discussing the recent PR disaster and the acquisition of LangSecure. Which, by the way, is now mine. Gasps. Whispered curses. Carter's face paled. You played me, he whispered. No, I said. You wrote me out of the story. I just picked up the pen. After the meeting, Carter followed me out. His voice trembled. You planned all of this? I turned to him slowly. I planned to marry you. I planned to build a life with you. I planned to wear the dress I paid for and walk down that aisle to a man I loved. I stepped closer. But you changed the bride. His throat bobbed. You made me feel disposable, I said. So I turned myself into something that could never be ignored again. Then I walked away. Later that night, Julian and I stood on his rooftop terrace, champagne in hand. You humiliated him, he said, a quiet admiration in his voice. No, I corrected. I held up a mirror. He humiliated himself. He turned toward me. You're not finished yet. I looked over the city. Not until I reclaim everything. Even the wedding? He asked. A beat. Then I smiled. Especially the wedding. Began with a simple idea. Not revenge. Reset. For months I watched Carter's world unravel. His picture-perfect marriage reduced to damage control. His company held together by duct tape and distraction. But it wasn't enough for me to simply walk away a success. I wanted the people who laughed at my silence, who clapped for the new bride as I stood in the shadows, to see me rise. Not as a rebuttal. As a redefinition. So I started planning. It didn't begin with a venue or a gown. It started with a list. A precise, curated, cold-blooded list. Names. Everyone who attended Carter's wedding that day. Everyone who had looked away. My family. My bridesmaids. Carter's smug inner circle. Even the photographers who turned their lenses toward Melanie as I stood alone. They would all get new invitations. To my wedding. Same date. Same time. 1 year later. Julian was the first to see the spreadsheet. Are you sure about this? He asked. It feels theatrical. I smiled. That's the point. He tilted his head. You're not doing this just to gloat, are you? No, I said. I'm doing it because people only believe in power when they see it. When it wears heels. When it walks back into the same garden they buried her in and owns it. He said nothing. But his eyes said everything. I didn't choose a wedding planner. I didn't need one. I chose a production team. Monroe Strategies had grown into a multi-million-dollar consulting firm, and now I used my own team to stage what would become the most talked-about event of the year. Everything was intentional. The venue, the very estate Carter used. I bought it in full. Under a shell company, then publicly announced the new owner was Savannah Monroe. The date? June 14th. Exactly 1 year to the day of my betrayal. The dress? Custom-made by a designer who had once turned me down because I wasn't a big enough name. No. She sent 3 sketches and called me a living icon. The guest list? It was exquisite. All 200 from the original wedding. Plus 100 new ones. Journalists, influencers, philanthropists, CEOs, all tied to Monroe Strategies' meteoric rise. I sent the invitations in black velvet envelopes, gold foil lettering, sealed with a wax M. They didn't say wedding. They said, 1 year later, you're invited to witness the real beginning. Location, Hartley Estate. Dress code, redemption required. No one declined. My mother called 2 days later. First time in months. Savannah, this isn't necessary. No, I said. It's overdue. People will talk. They already did. And they'll do it again with my name in their mouths and my image on their screens. She exhaled. Is it true? Are you marrying him? Julian? I asked. She hesitated. You love him? I smiled faintly. I chose him. That's more than I ever got from any of you. Julian proposed in the quietest way. No crowd. No camera. Just 2 crystal flutes, a glass balcony, and the city burning gold beneath us. I know you don't need a man, he said. But I'd like to be the one who never makes you prove your worth again. I didn't say yes. I said, give me the ring. The press didn't see it coming. The headlines dropped the morning after the invitations arrived. Savannah Monroe set to wed billionaire rival Julian Thorne on ex-fiance's anniversary. Betrayed bride returns with new ring, new name, new empire. Same venue. Same date. Different ending. Carter's PR team went into meltdown. Melanie deleted her social media. And my inbox filled with RSVPs. Everyone wanted a front row seat to the reckoning. 3 weeks before the wedding I got a call. Blocked number. I answered anyway. Savannah. Carter's voice was tired. Fractured. You don't have to do this. I'm not doing anything to you, I replied. I'm celebrating what I rebuilt. You sent an invitation. To the same people who clapped when I was erased. Silence. Is he just a weapon? He asked. I laughed. No, Carter. You were. The day before the wedding, the final guest arrived. My father. He stood outside the estate's grand entrance, cap in hand like a man asking permission. I shouldn't have let them replace you, he said. But your mother made her choice, I said. He looked at me, eyes rimmed in regret. You don't have to forgive me. I don't, I replied. But you can take your seat tomorrow. The night before, I stood in the center of the ballroom, every candle flickering, every flower petal perfectly placed. Julian found me there, barefoot, arms crossed. You're quiet, he said. Just remembering. He stepped behind me, hands sliding around my waist. You're not the girl they left behind anymore. I closed my eyes. No. I buried her beneath this chandelier. He kissed my shoulder. Ready? I turned to face him. Let's end the story they started. June 14th arrived in golden silence. The air was warm, the sky too perfect, as if the universe was offering me one final breath before the reckoning. But there was no fear in me, only clarity. Everything was ready. The garden had been transformed, not into a wedding space but into a declaration. Twinkling lights strung through towering white roses, glass aisles reflecting the sun, violinists playing a slow, reimagined version of The One Who Got Away. Only this time I wasn't the one. And I hadn't gotten away. I had taken everything with me. Guests arrived early. Some looked nervous. Others overly cheerful, like they weren't sure whether they were walking into a celebration or a public execution. I saw the former bridesmaids from Carter's wedding, perfectly dressed, fake laughing near the champagne bar. My mother hovered by the fountain, clutching her pearls like she wanted to disappear into them. Even Melanie had shown up, her smile tight, her outfit louder than necessary, desperate to prove she wasn't unraveling. Carter. He arrived late. Alone. wearing the same cologne I once bought him, now bitter on the wind. He took a seat in the fourth row, sunglasses hiding eyes I didn't care to read. The murmurs began before the ceremony even started. Is that him? She really invited everyone. She's marrying Julian Thorne? Yes. I was. And not for shock value. Not to get even. But because in a world full of men who wanted to dim me down, he was the one who lit the match. The music began. Not the cliché wedding march, but a piano piece I'd written when I was 19. One no one had ever heard before, not even Carter. Julian stood at the altar, hands clasped calmly in front of him, not smiling for show, just watching me like I was the only thing worth seeing in the world. I didn't cry. Not when I stepped onto the aisle. Not when the crowd rose. Not even when I saw my father, eyes glassy, mouthing, "I'm proud of you," from his seat. Because I had cried every tear a year ago. This was not mourning. This was triumph. Julian took my hand, his thumb brushing over my wrist gently. "I've never seen anything more powerful," he whispered. I tilted my chin. "You should see the honeymoon wardrobe." He laughed, low and rich, and I felt the crowd fade. Because in that moment there was no one else. Just the man I'd chosen and the woman I had fought to become. The officiant didn't read from a book. We had written the entire ceremony ourselves, crafted every line with intention. Because I didn't want a recycled promise. I wanted truth. Julian began. "I don't vow to complete you," he said. "You were never incomplete. I vow to build with you, beside you, behind you if needed, and never ahead, never above. I vow to let you be the storm and be the stillness beside it. Because power isn't what I bring to you. It's what I protect in you." Silence. Then it was my turn. I looked out at the crowd and I saw them. My past. My grief. My erasure. And then I turned back to Julian. "I don't vow to be perfect," I said. Because the woman I became didn't come from perfection. She came from fire. From silence. From betrayal. And I vow to never apologize for that again. I vow to love you not because I need you, but because I want you. Because when I stood alone, you never tried to carry me. You just stood still until I was ready to walk again. A murmur of awe rippled through the crowd. And for the first time in a year I felt completely seen. The rings were placed. Not gold. Platinum and obsidian. Custom forged. Unbreakable. Like us. The moment the officiant declared us husband and wife, Julian leaned in, hands on either side of my face, and kissed me like the world owed me something, and he was going to be the one to give it. The crowd stood. Applauded. Some with real emotion, others with pure, stunned politeness. And Carter? He didn't move. Just sat there, sunglasses off now, staring like the breath had been knocked out of him. At the reception the speeches began. Julian's sister gave a short, hilarious toast. My business partner gave a longer one. About how I taught her power wasn't about yelling louder, but choosing silence at the exact right moment. And then Carter approached. My team tried to stop him. I held up a hand. Let him through. Because sometimes, the loudest closure is the one you allow. He stood across from me, older somehow. Thinner. Grayer around the edges. "You planned all of this," he said. I sipped my wine. "Of course I did." "You married him, to get back at me?" "No," I said. "I married him because he didn't make me a shadow of myself. You could have just walked away quietly." "I did," I said. "You weren't listening." He stared at me for a long time. Then finally, "I didn't think you'd survive without me." And I replied, "I didn't." A beat. I thrived. He left before dessert. I didn't notice. Julian was dancing with my niece, the little girl who used to ask me why I wore sad lipstick all the time. My mother stood alone near the balcony. She didn't come to me, but she looked at me like she finally understood. And for now that was enough. As the night ended, Julian pulled me close on the dance floor, forehead resting against mine. "Did you get what you wanted?" he asked. "No," I said. He blinked. "I got what I deserved." 3 days after the wedding the coverage hadn't stopped. Not the gossip sites. Not the business media. Not even the political blogs. Because it wasn't just a wedding. It was a spectacle of rebirth. From rejected bride to billionaire's wife. Savannah Monroe just flipped the power script. Carter Lang was in the audience as his ex walked down the aisle, with his rival. The internet was obsessed. But I wasn't watching. I was busy preparing for the switch. It had been in motion for months. Carefully, invisibly. While Carter chased headlines to repair his reputation and Melanie tried to stay relevant with faux charitable posts, I'd been working through Monroe strategies to buy influence. Quietly securing assets under shell companies. Slowly building pressure behind the scenes. It started with media outlets. Then PR firms. Then 3 of Langcorp's top vendors. Each time I paid a premium. Each time I kept my name out of it. Until the board chair of Langcorp's parent group agreed to sell a majority block of voting shares to an anonymous buyer. That buyer was me. And with that I pulled the lever. Julian leaned against my office door when I told him the final piece had fallen. "You've been patient," he said. I nodded. Power is never about who strikes first. It's about who holds the last card. "Do you want me beside you when it happens?" I smiled. "You already are." The board meeting was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Just like the one I walked into months ago. Only this time I didn't arrive as a guest. I arrived as the new majority stakeholder. Carter sat at the head of the table like he still belonged there, even though he looked hollowed out. Tired. A man whose confidence had become a performance. He stiffened when I entered. "You're early." "No," I said, taking my seat across from him. "You're late. You just don't know it yet." The chairperson cleared his throat. "Before we begin, we have a motion submitted by our new lead shareholder, Miss Savannah Monroe." Murmurs. Confused looks. Carter's face paled. "What the hell are you talking about?" he asked. The chair nodded toward me. "Ms. Monroe." I placed the file down gently. "In accordance with the Articles of Control, I'm issuing a full vote of no confidence in CEO Carter Lang and nominating interim leadership effective immediately." "You're bluffing," he snapped. I handed out the documents one by one. Voting rights. Proxy authorizations. The full list of acquisitions. Then I stood. "Carter," I said. "You switched the bride." "I switched the board." He stood abruptly, voice sharp. "You can't just erase me from my company." "You erased me from my life," I replied, eyes steady. "This is just symmetry." The vote took 7 minutes. 9 for removal. 3 abstained. Carter didn't bother casting his own. When it was over, the room fell silent. Except for my voice. Effective immediately, Langcorp's CEO position is vacated. The company will transition leadership over the next 90 days under the oversight of the new executive committee. Carter stared at me like he couldn't breathe. I smiled. Meeting adjourned. Outside, reporters were already waiting. Rumors had spread. I had made sure of it. As I walked to the waiting car, I was flooded with questions. "Ms. Monroe, are you now in charge of Langcorp? What do you say to critics who claim this is revenge? Did Carter Lang know you were behind the acquisitions?" I turned once. Just once. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here to restore what was stolen." Back home, Julian was waiting on the balcony, 2 glasses of champagne ready. "You pulled the switch." "I did. Do you feel better?" "No." He raised an eyebrow. I walked to the edge of the balcony. The city shimmered like a promise beneath us. "I don't feel better," I said. "I feel unapologetic." He grinned. "Now you're dangerous." The next morning, Carter released a statement. It was stiff. Predictable. "After a mutual agreement, I am stepping down from my role as CEO of Langcorp to focus on new ventures and personal growth." I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because the public wasn't buying it. They knew the truth. And so did he. Later that week, I met Melanie for the last time. She showed up at my office in sunglasses and oversized faux humility, asking to talk in private. "I'm not proud of what I did," she began. "But you got your happy ending, didn't you?" I stared at her. "You thought this was about getting even," I said. "You never realized I wasn't fighting you. I was reclaiming me." She flinched. "I should have told you the truth," she whispered. "No," I said. "You should have been my sister. But you weren't. You were a placeholder. One I outgrew the moment I stopped needing anyone's permission to become who I am." Her eyes glassed over. I stood. "This is your final meeting. You can go now." She left without another word. And I felt nothing. That night I burned my old wedding dress. The one I never got to wear. I did it quietly, alone, in a fire pit on Julian's property. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closing the final door behind me. Not because I hated who I was, but because I finally loved who I'd become. The first weeks after the corporate takeover were quiet. Too quiet for some. The press buzzed with theories. Why hadn't I issued a statement? Why hadn't I publicly addressed Carter's removal? Why had I gone so still? Because sometimes the greatest power is silence. And mine wasn't passive. It was strategic. While everyone talked, I planned. While Carter scrambled for relevance, I erased the name he once made me carry. The official renaming ceremony for LangCorp was set for the last Friday in July. It wasn't just a rebrand. It was a rebirth. I chose a name with purpose. Hartley Global. Yes, my name. The one they all erased. But this time it wasn't attached to a man. It wasn't written under a Mrs. It wasn't whispered in pity. It was chiseled into steel. Printed on skyscraper banners. And announced across national networks. Julian stood beside me at the press conference. He didn't need the spotlight. He didn't want it. Instead, he watched me with quiet admiration, letting me rise as I was always meant to. When I took the mic, I didn't offer a corporate speech. I offered the truth. My name is Savannah Monroe Hartley. You may remember me as the woman left at the altar. But I am not a tragedy. I am not a headline. I am not the woman you remember. I am the woman who rebuilt the empire that once shut its doors on me. I am the woman who was replaced, and returned not for revenge but for justice. I was once told I'd be nothing without him. Today, I renamed the company that tried to forget me. Mic drop. Literally. Carter never released a response. Not publicly. But a month later I received a letter. Real ink. Handwritten. No return address. Savannah. I don't know what I expected when I swapped you out like furniture. Thought I was trading up. But the truth is, Melanie was a mirror. She reflected the worst of me. You were the light I was too blind to recognize. I see now that I didn't just lose you. I lost the only version of myself worth being. See. I folded the letter and tucked it into my desk. Not to keep, but to remember what never to allow again. Because his regret was not my reward. My power was never about his apology. It was about finally loving the version of myself I never had to shrink for. Months passed. Hartley Global soared. Julian and I moved forward, not as headlines but as partners. I visited the Monroe Foundation branches one by one, spoke to survivors, mentored founders, shook hands with women who told me through tears. You showed me it was okay to start over. You made me feel seen. You're the reason I walked out. And every time I heard that, I smiled. Because the girl who once stood frozen in a wedding dress no one clapped for, she had made it out. And she had lit a path behind her. Our anniversary approached. 1 year since I walked down the aisle toward a man who didn't try to change me, only stood proudly beside me. Julian surprised me with a trip to the cliffs of Santorini. Private villa. No press. No speeches. We watched the sun sink into the sea, wrapped in silence and linen sheets and everything soft and true. He turned to me and said, "You know, if you'd said no, I'd still be here." I ran a hand through his hair. "And if I'd never risen again, you'd have stayed by the ashes. I would have built the fire with you," he whispered. That night, under a Grecian moon, I understood something I never had before. Healing isn't loud. It's steady, quiet, earned. On our last night there, I sent one final letter. To myself. The woman I was on the day she stood in the back of that wedding hall, watching her life unravel without a word of warning. I wrote, "You didn't fail. You didn't fall. You were always too big for that ceremony, that man, that name. You are not disposable. You are not second choice. You are the fire they tried to douse. And now, you're the flame they cannot look away from. They switched me, silenced me, replaced me. But I didn't seek revenge. I sought redesign. I didn't return to cry at the altar. I returned to own the building. And now when people speak my name, they don't think of betrayal. They think of power. Because I didn't just change the vows. I changed the story. And I'm never giving it back." The end.